this is a lot that you are.
Okay, Gabby, Hannah, I don't know about that one. Hello guys, welcome back to my channel, and if you are new, my name is Charlie. Please consider subbing before you exit this video. Now in today's video, I'm reacting to Amberlynn's new video, My Bad Poetry, which is interesting because Sarah over on her channel, Young Dumb Honey Bun, has covered some of her older poetry, and I think recently she also said she didn't know Young Dumb Honey Bun, even though she's commented, I think either on a community post or some sort of video. But let's just get right into the video.
Hey guys, so here is a vulnerable video for you. I feel like
do this.
I'm standing nude in front of you guys right now because this is like my true inner feelings. So I just want to start off by saying that I have been on Instagram for days now, maybe over a week, just like super obsessed with interacting with you guys,
ask me anything,
answering your guys' questions, and it's been real fun for me.
How's it?
And I happened to share a poem on there, and you know, I get majority of people
this isn't
saying,
about Sarah's videos.
Wow, you're a really good writer, which feels really good. But then the minute I get one mean thing about my poetry, I'm just like, all the good stuff kind of goes away. So
I can understand that.
I've been writing poetry since 6th grade, and I know a lot of like my really old stuff has turned up on
That's
the internet.
referring to Sarah.
That I wrote when I was 17. You have to realize that was 13 years ago.
Okay.
I am a completely different writer now than I was then. People blossom, people change, whether they get better or they get worse. Like, it is what it is. Poetry for me is a really good outlet, and I love writing poetry whether I'm good or whether I'm bad. And I just think
I can agree with this. When I was younger, I actually used to write poetry as well because my thoughts, especially depending on the emotion, is better written. I can express myself a lot better when I write it down versus when I do say it. When I was younger, I had trouble expressing myself or communicating because of some of the things that were going on at home. Now as an adult, I kind of have the opposite effect. I express myself a little too much. However, most of the time, I believe I have a good balance of it. But even today, as an adult, I do express myself better when I write my feelings out. I had eventually went from writing poetry to writing rhymes and things like that. I didn't pursue anything. Like, I wasn't that talented. I liked my poetry. However, when it comes to poetry or rhyming or different forms of art, it's individual to that person. So not everyone's gonna like someone's poetry. Like with Amber, I've only caught like a couple. I personally didn't like them. There's a lot of poetry I've seen through the years that either I like or dislike. The beautiful thing about poetry or art in general, it doesn't fall under one category. Her poetry is not for me from what I've seen. However, it might be for many people. Like she said, she gets support on it, so it works. As long as it works for her and it works for some people, because I do believe the art of poetry is meant to be shared.
100 people can read the exact same poem, and there are going to be people in there who absolutely hate it and despise it, and there are also going to be people in there who love it and resonate with it. True. I think the most beautiful thing about poetry is that you can read it and think of something that the author didn't even really present. And that's happened to me several times, and that's kind of what happened with the poem that I put on Instagram. A lot of people were messaging me saying, oh, I know what this is about, blah, blah, blah. So I do want to explain that a little bit, and I'm also going to read the poem, which I'm nervous about. So when I'm writing poetry, it is mainly just like a way for me to journal. It's just the best way for me to express myself and how I'm feeling.
Wait, is this about Rain and Petals Eavesdrop?
With the thought process of, okay, I'm gonna write a poem. Let's make it sound good. Let's have it flow the right way.
Again. I take
and
that
more
back.
so just let my fingertips talk, and that's usually what works best for me. And you know, I'll proofread it and stuff, but 9 times out of 10, I leave it how I did it. My rough draft is always my final draft, mainly because my poetry is strictly, okay, well, that's how I was feeling in the moment. So I'm going to read it, And then I'm going to tell you guys what a lot of people thought it was about. And I'm kind of going to explain it a little bit so you guys can maybe understand a little bit better. I'm like really nervous.
How bad was it?
But I do want to say that what I wrote this poem about, if you think of it as something different and it resonates with you in a different way, don't let me change that, because I love poetry in the sense that I love that I can read a poem from someone and it hits home somewhere completely different than what the author intended. So,
okay,
let's get into it.
Yeah, okay. Girl, just go. It's
this poem is called I'm Fine. Loneliness was her autobiography. She sat in her room and counted.
When people actually read out their poetry, I have to close my eyes. So I actually have to close my eyes to listen to it. If I was reading it, obviously my eyes are open. But when it comes to poetry, I actually do have to close my eyes to take it in. And I actually want to take in what she's saying.
Out of the cracks in the ceiling. Her mind was the destination she tried to run away from. She forgot how it felt to laugh with other people, beg her to smile, and her face would crack. She hid mascara-stained pillowcases and novels full of self-hatred. Ask her how she's doing and she'd lie and say I'm fine. Ask her how she's doing and she'd lie. Ask her how she's doing. Ask me how I'm doing. I'm so tired of being this lonely. I'm so terrified that this is it for me, that these tears are all it'll ever be. I'm beginning to think that you don't want to hold me. I don't want this to be the death of me, for I've lost the best in me. I'd lie and say I'm fine. So, That is the poem, and I feel like
Before she talks about what it's about, because I was just going to express it, what I took from it is actually something I think people can relate to, at least I can. What it sounds like is she's saying she's wanting help, and she's wanting people to know she's not okay, but when people ask if she's okay, she still says she's fine, which is something I do all the time, even today. Like, I do it very often, actually. Even ever since this started, ever since the whole pandemic with this virus started, I've had so many people ask me, how are you? Are you okay? And the easiest answer that I've been answering for years is, I'm fine. I'm taking it a day at a time. And truly, there are a lot of days that people ask me that, and I'm actually not doing fine. I may be reaching with everything that I'm saying right now, but that's what I hear in that poem. And she said, I can interpret it how I want. So I feel like she is not fine. She wants help. However, when someone asks her if she's okay or if she needs help, she's denying the help, which I feel is very relatable. I don't know what you guys got from it, but that's what I got from it. So
I needed to put emphasis on some of it because I feel like emphasis makes it maybe understood a little bit better. So the reason why I'm making this is because I can't even tell you how many messages I got where people are like, I know this is about Becky. I know they broke up. I know amberlynn's unhappy with her. And just all this really
this is the poem that everybody was talking.
And so it's like, it goes in a rumor mill and then everyone, starts to believe it and all that. So I kind of just want to explain what I meant and I guess where my thought process was at the time of making this poem. So when I said loneliness was her autobiography, that's pretty much...
Before she gets into it, I didn't read it that way. Maybe I should listen to it twice. However, I didn't read it that way, and also I actually like the poem. I heard people talking about a poem in Becky, but I didn't think this was the one. I don't know if she posted more than one, but everyone can interpret it differently, like she said. So this is the breakdown.
Self-explanatory. I feel lonely a lot of the time.
I feel you, girl.
You can be in a room full of a million people who absolutely adore you, and you can still feel lonely. It has nothing to do with your relationship or your friendships or anything around you. Absolutely not. So, the next line is she sat in a room and counted the cracks in the ceiling. When I wrote that, I remember I was in such a depressive state that I never wanted to leave my bed. I didn't want to do anything, and it almost seemed like it was a metaphor for like, I pretty much have this room memorized through and through, that I can count the cracks in the ceiling and tell you how many there are. So that's what I meant by that. Her mind was the destination she tried to run away from. So a lot of people also commented on that line saying it didn't make sense. Poetry from Amberlynn Reid doesn't have to make sense, honestly, but in my head it does. Because when I'm depressed, I feel like my mind has a one-track mind. It wants to just bury me alive almost, and I feel like that's its destination. Its destination is to make me feel horrible and to make me feel worthless and lonely and like just horrible. So that destination is an area that I want to run away from. I don't ever want to arrive at that destination, but there are times that I do. Next line is, she forgot how it felt to laugh with other people, begged her to smile and her face would crack. I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory. There are a lot of times when I am, going through these episodes where I don't laugh. Everyone around me could just be having the time of their lives, and it's almost like I'm completely checked out. Begged her to smile and her face would crack. I am so used to not smiling and so used to just being so sad that it's almost like I'm a statue in that sense. So if I was to smile, my face would crack. I write in a lot of metaphors. That's something that Becky pointed out to me, and I never even noticed. Metaphors is just, I don't know. I just like them the best. She hid mascara-stained pillowcases and novels full of self-hatred. So what I meant by that is, it's obvious. I used to wear makeup all the time, and I don't wear waterproof mascara. So every time I cry, you'd see those, especially when I was like ugly crying, you'd see that mascara, obviously. And I can't tell you how many times I've gotten mascara on my pillows from crying myself to sleep. And novels full of self-hatred, that's pretty much just talking about, because I do journal a lot, that's just talking about, when I journal about how much I hate myself or I hate my life, or when I make poetry about how much I hate myself or I hate my life, that's what that meant. And then the whole part where it's like, ask her how she's doing and she'd lie and say I'm fine. Ask her how she's doing and she'd lie. Ask her how she's doing. Ask me how I'm doing. So what I meant by all those lines is like, a lot of the times I say I'm fine or I say I'm doing okay. I never just flat out tell people, oh, I'm not doing good, because I don't want them to ask what's wrong, because I personally don't want to talk about it. It's like one of those things where it's like, you want people to be there for you, but then you also don't want to talk about it, so it's like this vicious cycle. So I wanted to put emphasis on ask her how she's doing and she'd lie and say I'm fine.
And I know people are going to say it's like beating a dead horse. I do that with a lot of people. However, I don't do that with my therapist. My therapist is the one person I don't hold back from. I'm sure my therapist needs a therapist when dealing with me. That's how much I do reveal to her, and that's how much I open up to her. So I understand what she's saying here. However, I don't believe the poetry is enough. It's clear it's not enough, actually. The poetry is not enough. The journals are not enough. At the end of the day, she's been doing this for years, as she said. So I think for her, it's a way to cope, but it's not an effective way to cope. I believe, honestly, if I was her, I would actually take these journals and take these poems and use that maybe as a stepping stone to open up to her therapist. I don't know if that's good advice or not. However, it seems as though she opens up a lot when it comes to her writing. So if she struggles or if she's scared to talk to a stranger, maybe talk to them through your poetry until you build up that courage and that relationship with them, and then she won't need the poetry anymore. I'm not sure. I still don't understand why she won't go to therapy. I don't fully understand it. However, it's very, I don't know, this seems so sad. She needs to go to therapy. The poems are not going to help her in the long run. I think it's a great way to express yourself. However, it's not an effective way to cope with the things she's going on. Because what I'm hearing, unless it's just about the poem, but I don't know, she just seems to, I don't know.
Ask her how she's doing and she'd lie. And then when I said ask her how she's doing, it was my way of saying, why can't more people truly ask how someone is doing? Because I feel like when a lot of people ask, hey, how are you doing? It's really just small talk. People don't really ask how someone's doing and really, truly want to know. It's just one of those things, and I'm not the only one who feels that way. And then I switched it to ask me how I'm doing. And the whole part, the whole big paragraph, which is in italic font, I'm so tired of being this lonely. I'm so terrified that this is it for me, that these tears are all ill.
Okay, so just to cover what she's saying, yes, with small talk, say if you're talking to a cashier or you're just walking past someone, you'll say how you're doing. I understand that small talk, but I have a feeling even if it's not small talk, even if it's a professional asking her, I don't believe she'll honestly say how she's doing. I hope she's doing that with the psychiatrist. I'm assuming she's doing it there. But I have a feeling Amberlynn's closed off in general. Whether it's small talk or someone's honestly asking, really wanting to inquire about how you're feeling, where your mental health is, or things like that, she's probably closed off in general. The thing with always saying, I'm okay, it's a sense of control. That's why I know why I do it, and I believe that's why she does it as well. You're controlling not getting that sympathy. You're controlling that person not asking more questions, at least for me. You're controlling the conversation not going further, going deeper. That's what I've experienced through myself. I can't say for sure it's the same with her. However, I feel Amberlynn has that sense of wanting to keep control because there's so many other things that are outside of her control. But I would seek professional help to try to figure out why she does that.
I'll ever be, I'm beginning to think that you don't want to hold me. I don't want this to be the death of me, for I've lost the best of me. So that is what sometimes I really want to say out loud. I just want to word vomit, but then the last line,
you do,
I lie and say I'm fine, because that's just realistically how it is. I have all these inner demons and inner thoughts, and just it's just a lot going up, going on up here and in my heart and stuff. But yeah, I'm doing good. I'm doing okay. Thanks for asking. So the part where people are like, okay, this is about Becky. The lines, I'm beginning to think that you don't want to hold me. I don't want this to be the death of me, for I have lost the best of me. So definitely not about Becky in the way that you guys think.
Okay,
so
I could see it. I could see it both ways.
When I am depressed, or when I'm feeling super down, lonely, I think that everyone in my life hates me. And it's just a thought. It's not real. I know it's not real, and I have to remind myself all the time that it's not real. And if Becky was to ask me, how are you doing? And it was during a time where this is how I felt, lonely and down and horrible, that is what I would want to say. I'd want to say, I feel like you don't love me, you don't want to hold me, this is the death of me, and I've lost the best of me. That isn't me talking, that's the depression talking. And I'm sure a lot of you guys can relate to that. And when I say, for I've lost the best of me, it means that depression has completely taken over. And I just feel like I'm not even myself anymore, because that's not who I am. I'm not Amberlynn, the depressed girl or whatever. Like, that's just not how it is. Like, I just happen to have depression. And I know a lot of you also have it, and I feel like that's where we...
But truly, who is Amberlynn?
So I hope
that's the crazy part.
Sense to some of you. It's definitely... None of this is because of Becky. I think that's very strange that you guys would think that. I
can see that, actually.
Problems, whether I'm with Becky or someone else or single, it doesn't even matter. So yeah, I just kind of wanted to explain that.
But you guys do bring each other down.
It's not like the best home in the world. It's just how I was feeling at the time. And I wanted to share it with you guys because a lot of you didn't understand on Instagram, didn't understand, like, how I was feeling and stuff, so I figured a poem would help with that. And I actually wrote this June 12th, 2019. So yeah, I write poetry all the time. It's just something I really love doing, and my poetry has gotten a lot better in my opinion. I used to make really long poems, too long, and now I try to make poems that aren't so long. I even write poems that are like 2 sentences. Like this one is called Secret Love. You sat next to me today and I could smell the cherries that lived in your hair. You smiled at me without knowing that you were the reason I wore my favorite shirt. That's just
That's actually cute.
All you need is those 2 lines to know that you are in love with, either you can look at it as you're in love with your best friend, or someone could look at it as...
So is that what happened with this relationship? Because I feel like that's so cute and everything. However, I don't know if she was still writing poetry when she was with Destiny. I'm going to assume yes. But it seems like the love she has in her heart has been poured into her poetry instead of Becky. I still will never understand why their dynamic is so different. I think she mentioned that Becky is not into PDA or not as affectionate. I forgot what she mentioned, but there was a clear difference between her and Destiny. However, what she pours into her poetry, I kind of wish I would see it between her and Becky. Because this is so sweet, and I don't know if she wrote it for Becky. However, I would like to see this type of expression through them, even though we won't see Becky on camera anymore, so I guess we won't ever see it. But it would have been nice to see that. Like, her writing that, if someone told me she wrote that for Destiny, I'd 100% believe it. But if someone said she wrote that for Becky, I would question it because of the dynamic I've seen in the past.
With just a friend of yours or someone at your school, like, it could literally mean anything. Or here's another 2-liner. It's called Cursive. All my poems are the same, loneliness written in a million different ways, which is so true. So,
I don't know if I like that.
You know, years and years ago, I thought all my poems had to be super long, but I've realized that sometimes you ain't gotta do that. Like, here's another.
I like the cherry blossom one.
3 lines. It's called Cheap Wine. You must love noise, playing with an innocent mind with your dirty hands and cheap wine. That says a lot. That you are...
Okay, Gabbie, Hanna. I don't know about that one.
Advantage of someone. See, all you need is a few words, and it could say a lot. So, anyways, I'm rambling. I just wanted to kind of explain that. So, anyways, I know I'm gonna get a lot of hate on this video, and it's hard to...
My camera cut off. It's almost over.
For things that they're passionate about, whether it be like a painting or, you know, a short film they made or whatever it is. And it is kind of hard for people to judge my feelings. That's like really weird, right? It's like a really weird way of thinking.
Easy,
That's
actually.
pretty much what's happening.
It's the internet, girl.
Anyways, I do hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys do want to hear a little bit,
is that a Torrid top? Because that's cute.
Like really old stuff, and then see the difference between then and now. That could be.
Did you wear that in the hall?
But I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Well, I don't think it was that bad. The cherry blossom one, I don't know if she named them, but the cherry blossom poem itself, that was my favorite, even though it was 2 lines. I think when it comes to amberlynn, because poetry is art, right? And it's individual to that person, how they want to express themselves. The thing with that, and I think why some people may not like her poetry, is there's a lot of times people can't separate the art from the artist. And if her poetry was attached to someone else who may not have been as problematic or have done a lot of things that she's done, I think it would be more accepting. I don't know for sure if that's the reason, because personally, no matter what, I don't like some of her old stuff, but I do like this one. However, I can understand her getting negative feedback for her poetry because the art is attached to a problematic artist. For example, Kanye, a lot of people now say they don't like his music because they can't separate the artist from the art. I know it sounds like I'm comparing amberlynn to Kanye West. That's not what I'm doing. However, through the last, year or 2, Kanye West has done some things publicly that a lot of people don't approve of, and they don't support his music. He's doing just fine, by the way. Clearly, I'm not necessarily sharing my opinion on that, but I know when it comes to the art and the artistry, that's something a lot of people had an opinion on when it came to Kanye specifically. Again, Amber's not Kanye, I'm not Kanye, I'm just using the example. Well, that's the video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Remember, be better today than you were yesterday, and greater tomorrow than you will be today. Later.